Hello friends, and welcome to Escaping the Mouse with your host, me, Breck Roll. Alright, I got a little investigative project to do today. This is actually something that I've known about for a few weeks. As you recall, I just came back from my trip from California, and right before I went to California I took the cover off the pool, and I've tried running the pool robot a few times to clean the inside of the pool, because you still get a little bit of gunk in the pool even with a cover on. And so I wanted to run the vacuum, and the vacuum ran fine for a couple of cycles, but it didn't finish the process, and for some reason the robot itself stopped operating, and I'm not sure why. I might understand that. Obviously the biggest concern when you're dealing with an electronic device that operates underwater is, does it remain watertight? Because we all know water and electricity don't get along very well. And so if you're going to do something that's going to operate underwater, you got to protect it. And the concern is maybe there was a leak. However, it seems odd that that happened, because the thing hasn't been in the pool all winter. I took it out of the pool and left it on the stand all winter, and it was only in the water for a little while. So, you know, it doesn't necessarily seem likely that that would happen, but it's at least a possibility, and I want to try and figure out what's going on with it, because I'd rather fix it if I can, but you know, I need one, because you know, there's always gunk ending up in the pool, and that's a kind of a necessity when you have a pool. So let's take a look at the project, and I'll show you what the problem is. And actually I decided to do this in the house today, in the living room, because it's like 96 degrees out there. That's part of the reason why I want to get this thing working, so I can get into the pool, because it's a nice night to be in the pool. So this is we're going to do this inside in the house because they got the air conditioning here, but this is the vacuum itself, the little robot, and it attaches via a long wire to the controller over here. And like I said, usually you turn it on and this thing starts moving around. This little thing here, this little fan blows to provide you know, the ability for the thing to scale the walls and stuff like that. It's like a jet that pushes it against the wall. And it's a relatively simple device, but like I said, when I plug it in, or at least when I plugged it in before I went to California, the first few times it worked, and then after that it didn't. So I don't know if it's a water issue. You know, maybe I can fix it depending on the nature of the issue, but I got to open it up and see what's going on. But like I said, it's been sitting in dry air now for, you know, three weeks or so since I left for California. So maybe it dried out. So first thing I think I want to do is plug it in, turn it on, and see if it works. Because if it works, then that sort of tells me what the problem is. Maybe there's something with the cord here. See, there's some sort of a plug here. Obviously they're connecting the robot to the cable, and there's this thing that's supposed to protect the connection to keep it watertight. Maybe that thing leaked. Maybe the point where the cord goes into the box leaked, and once we've cleared all the water out of there, maybe the thing will work again. So like I said, I'm going to try plugging it in, turning it on, and see if anything happens, and then we'll go from there. Alright, so we got the controller powered up, and actually put the robot itself up on blocks, so that if the wheels did start moving, it wouldn't roll off the table or anything. It'd just be trapped there and doing whatever it's doing. So even after 3 weeks, this thing isn't running. So I don't know what's going on. Like I said, it could be a problem with the cable. It could be water got inside. I think the next step is I got to take it apart and let's see what's inside. Alright, this is the brains of the thing here. And it looks like it's a pretty good design. It's designed definitely to keep water out, because this is the only output for the motor, and it seems to have a pretty serious bushing for that. This is the output for the fan. And then the input for the power is right here. Everything else seems to be sealed up. Now, one of the things I noticed when I flipped it over is the bottom here is screwed into place. So I'm going to try removing those screws and opening it up, and let's see what's inside there and see if we can figure out what's going on. Alright, so I got the cover off of the bottom of this thing. There's definitely no sign that there's any problems in here. I see a little bit of moisture in here, but one of the things I noticed is for protection. They had like a desiccant pack in here. So, and the desiccant pack doesn't feel like it's been exposed to any real water. I don't see any evidence of water damage inside. So I don't know. My next thing I think is maybe to look at this cable and see if there's something going on here. So I've been looking at the system here, and I actually think I want to pull up the manual and figure out what kind of power we're dealing with in here. I suspect that this is the power supply here. In fact, I may take a closer look at this thing and see if it tells me what its output is, because I could put a meter on here and see if we're getting that output, and then I could put that same meter on this end over here and make sure it's making it all the way into the box. And if that's not the problem, then I either have a damaged hose here somewhere along the way, or this part here where they sealed the power cord to the robot has failed or something. So that's, I think, the next step. We're gonna do a little research on this thing. Like I said, sometimes these things are marked in the back, so I'm gonna pull the power supply out of there and see if we can figure out what kind of output this thing has voltage wise. It would make sense it would be low voltage, because you wouldn't want to be putting 120 volts into this thing and then have the risk that there be a leak and somebody's in the pool and all of a sudden you've energized the water at 120 volts. It makes a lot more sense that it would be a lot lower voltage and probably a DC voltage, so it didn't shock you. And that is what I see on the motor here. The motor here says it has a 15 volt input, and usually that would be a DC configuration. So that at least gives me an idea what we're looking at in terms of the output on that end, and we can see if the power is actually making it all the way in here. So let's do a little research on this and see what we can learn. Alright, yeah, so that was easy. The output of the power supply is 29 volts DC. So that's good. I can plug a multimeter into that. Let's see if we're getting 29 volts coming out of this box, and then we can see if we get 29 volts coming into this box. So let's go get a multimeter and move on from there. Okay, so I plugged the multimeter into the power supply directly, and of course to do that you have to disconnect the robot from it, and I got no meaningful voltage at the output. Now sometimes these power supplies are set up where they only work if everything is hooked up, so it's got to be the power supply itself connected directly to the robot, and since I disconnected it I wasn't getting any meaningful power. What I decided to do after that was just to check the continuity of the cable from here to right here, because this is where the power comes in. This is the opposite end of where the cable goes right through the box here. So this is clearly the input of the power coming here. And it turns out that while there's two plugs in this thing, I don't know if we're going to be able to see them here. Once again, it's always a focusing issue. Yeah, well, there you can see on the right there's the pin on the top and the pin on the bottom. And the pin on the bottom is clearly connected to the black wire here, but I can't find anything that the pin on the top is connected to. And that tells me maybe there is something wrong with the cable. And if that's the case, then you know, that's where the repair needs to be made. Now, like I said, the most obvious place for this problem is going to be right here where it connects up, because otherwise you'd have to see some damage in the wire. And I'm going to inspect the wire and make sure the wire looks good, but I don't think that's the problem. There's nothing obviously wrong here. So I think the next thing I'm going to try doing is plugging the whole thing in, turning it on with this thing out and the thing open like this, and maybe we can see what's happening. Alright, so I just made an interesting breakthrough here that may kind of turn this whole thing around. As I said before, I wanted to check the entire cable, make sure that there weren't any breaches in the cable that could cause, you know, an electrical problem. And I didn't find anyone around the entire length of the cable, didn't see anything that felt out of the ordinary. So I started looking at this thing. This is a connection that connects the robot to the cable. And when I looked closely, I realized that this piece here is a little bit loose in there, and that I can push that thing in, and when I push it in, the robot comes to life. So we've definitely found out what the problem is. There is nothing going on wrong in the electronics. The electronics are fine. For some reason, this connection right here is a little loose. So that makes it a little bit easier to maybe figure out what's going on. Now at least know where the problem is, because the robot does work when you push that little connector in there a little bit. So it may just be a matter of replacing this piece here, and that shouldn't be too terribly difficult to do. These things are usually pretty well sealed in there, so I'll probably have to cut this one off and reconnect. But I bet you that can be done for a lot less money than would be to replace this whole thing. I was looking at these things. These things start at about $700 and go up. And so it'd be much better if I can fix this thing rather than have to replace it. So that's a good thing. We know now where to start, and maybe we can figure this thing out yet. So I think before I go too much more on this, now that I've discovered where the problem is and that the whole system seems to work properly, as long as I can get that connection work properly, I think what I want to do is put the whole thing back together, because I'm going to take it probably over to the pool place tomorrow, and I want to see what they think about that, because you know, that isn't just something you buy a replacement piece and snap it together. That's something that it has to be waterproof and it has to be sealed on there. So I want somebody that knows what they're doing to do that. All right, so I put the robot all the way back together, and I think I'm going to bring it over to the pool place. Probably not tomorrow, because I got jury duty tomorrow, and I suspect that may take all day. Hopefully they'll release me, and I'll probably bring this thing in the car with me so that I can demonstrate what's going on for them and have them recommend what we do next. I'm hoping at this point that they've got some sort of a means of replacing this thing, getting the old one off, putting a new one on, and sealing everything up and making sure we're having a good connection. Because that's what needs to happen, because I can't have any kind of a leak here, because if there's a leak here, then we get water getting into the power connection here, and that can short everything out and make it not work. So this thing's definitely got to work correctly, and that I think is the next step. So I'll catch up with you when we get that done, and we'll go from there. All right, so it's the next day. I really couldn't go over to the pool place yesterday because it was Sunday, and a lot of Texas closes up on Sundays. So went over there today, and found out that this thing isn't molded onto it. It actually just screws closed on it to cover the connection. And when they opened it up, it became kind of clear what the problem was. It also explained why I couldn't get power across the cable you know, when I was testing it with a multimeter. But this thing unscrews, and there's a couple little spring-loaded pins that make contact in here. And apparently this thing is a swivel. It's designed to allow the power connection to swivel, because, you know, this thing's going back and forth in the pool and twisting around. And if you didn't do that, your cable would get all twisted up, and that would be a problem. So when I was looking at that, it looked to me like just one of the little spring-loaded pins wasn't springing back into position as it should. Now, obviously, when you're dealing with a company, they would rather sell you a whole new robot than try and fix the one that's working. But I decided to come home now that I know that I can get into this little piece here. I'm going to open this up, and I'm going to see if I can figure out how to make that little spring-loaded pin pop back out again, and maybe we can get some more life out of this. Yeah, see, I thought this would be easier than I thought. It turns out this pin was a little bit recessed inside of there, and it isn't as springy as it probably should. See, this one, you spring it and it pops back out again. This one doesn't spring as well, but I still think we can maybe make this thing work again. So we're going to take another shot at this. We're going to put this thing back together and throw it in the pool and see if we can make it work. All right, so we got the thing basically working here. I'll probably at some point are going to probably have to replace this thing anyway, but at this point, you know, we can at least get the pool cleaned up to the point where you can use it, and hopefully this will be all right. You can see there's a lot of gunk down there, but the thing is working. I got kind of a band-aid on it right now to kind of keep everything connected. So I'm just gonna let this run a few times here, run a few cycles. Man, we're a lot of gunk in the pool, right? Yeah, I mean, this is like 3 weeks without running the pool vacuum, so there's a whole bunch of stuff in here, and I'm probably gonna have to go in there with a net and get some of that stuff out. But I'm gonna let the pool sweep do its thing, and we'll see what happens. So I think that's all that I have for today. Thank you as always for watching, and I'll see you next time on Escaping the Mouse. Good night. So just from the perspective of helping you understand a little bit what it's like to live in Waco, this is a spider I just found in the house. And it was kind of interesting. I didn't even really notice it, but Bite found it first, and he was obviously curious about something that was moving around. He was batting at it, and it caught my attention because it caught his attention. And yeah, this is what I caught. Just part of the fun of living in Texas. Now, some people are really kind of freaked out about spiders, but as long as I can catch them safely and move them outside, I'll usually do that. You'll be happier out here.